We kept moving and passed a skeleton crumpled in a tunnel. It wore the remains of a dress shirt, slacks, and a tie. The spider didn't slow down. I slipped on a pile of wood scraps, but when I shined the light on them, I realized that they were pencils. Hundreds of them, all broken in half. A tunnel opened up into a larger room. A blazing light hit us. Once my eyes adjusted, the first thing I noticed were the skeletons. Dozens of them littered the floor around us. Some were old and bleached white, others were more recent and a lot grosser. They didn't smell quite as bad as grain in stables, but almost. Then I saw the monster. She stood on a glittery dais on the opposite side of the room. She had the body of a huge lion and the head of a woman. She would have been pretty, but her hair was tied back in a tight bun, and she wore too much makeup, so she kind of reminded me of my third grade choir teacher. She had a blue ribbon badge pinned to her chest. It took me a moment to read. It said, "This monster has been rated exemplary." Tyson whispered, "Sphinx." I knew exactly why he was scared. When he was small, Tyson had been attacked by a sphinx in New York. He still had the scars on his back to prove it. Spotlights blazed on either side of the creature. The only exit was a tunnel right behind the dais. The mechanical spider scurried between the sphinx's paws and disappeared. Annabeth started forward, but the sphinx roared, showing fangs in an otherwise human face. Bars came down on both the tunnel exits, behind us and in front. Immediately, the monster's snarl turned into a brilliant smile. "Welcome, lucky contestants," she announced. "Get ready to play Answer That Riddle." Canned applause blasted from the ceiling, as if there were invisible loudspeakers. Spotlights swept across the room and reflected off the dais, throwing disco glitter all over the skeletons on the floor. "Fabulous prizes," the Sphinx said. "Pass the test, and you get to advance. Fail, and I will eat you. Who will be our contestants?" Annabeth grabbed my arm. "I've got this," she whispered. "I know what she's going to ask." I didn't argue too hard. I didn't want Annabeth getting devoured by a monster, but I figured if the Sphinx was going to ask riddles, Annabeth was the best one of us to try. She stepped forward on the contestants' podium, which had a skeleton in a school uniform hunched over it. She pushed the skeleton out of the way and it clattered to the floor. "Sorry," Annabeth told it. "Welcome, Annabeth Chase," the monster cried, though Annabeth hadn't said her name. "Are you ready for your test?" "Yes, ask your riddle." 20 riddles, actually," the Sphinx said gleefully. "Wait, back in the old days?" "Oh, we've raised our standards. To pass, you must show proficiency in all 20 questions. Isn't it great?" Applause switched off like somebody turning a faucet. Annabeth glanced at me nervously. I gave her an encouraging nod. "Okay." "I'm ready," Annabeth said. The drum roll sounded from above. The Sphinx's eyes glittered with excitement. "What is the capital of Bulgaria?" Annabeth frowned. For a terrible moment I thought she was stumped. "Sophia," she said. "But—" "Correct!" More canned applause came down. The Sphinx smiled so wide her fangs showed. "Please be sure to mark your answer clearly on your test with the number 2 pencil." "What?" Annabeth looked mystified. Then a test book appeared on the podium right in front of her, along with a sharpened pencil. "Make sure you bubble each answer clearly inside the circle," the Sphinx said. "If you have to erase, erase completely, or the machine will not be able to read your answers." "What machine?" Annabeth asked. The Sphinx pointed her paw. Over by the spotlight there was a bronze box with a bunch of gears and levers, and a big Greek letter Eta on the side, the mark of Festus. "Now," the Sphinx said, "next question." "Wait a second," Annabeth protested. What walks on 4 legs in the morning?" "I beg your pardon," the Sphinx said, clearly annoyed now. "The riddle man. He walks on 4 legs in the morning like a baby, 2 legs in the afternoon like an adult, 3 in the evening like an old man with a cane. That's the riddle you used to ask." "Exactly why we changed the test," the Sphinx exclaimed. "You already know the answer. Now, second question. What is the square root of 16? 4, Annabeth said. "But—" "Correct! Which U.S. president signed the Emancipation Proclamation?" "Abraham Lincoln, but—" "Correct! Riddle number 4. How much? Hold up, Annabeth shouted. I wanted to tell her to stop complaining. She was doing great. She should just answer the questions so we could leave. These aren't riddles, Annabeth said. What do you mean? The Sphinx snapped. Of course they are. The test material is specially designed. It's just a bunch of dumb random facts, Annabeth insisted. Riddles are supposed to make you think. Think? The Sphinx frowned. How am I supposed to test whether you can think? That's ridiculous. Now, how much force is required? Stop, Annabeth insisted. This is a stupid test. Annabeth, Grover cut in nervously. Maybe you could just, finish first and complain later. I'm a child of Athena, she insisted. And this isn't an insult to my intelligence. I won't answer these questions. Part of me was impressed for her for standing up like that, but part of me thought her pride was going to get us all killed. The spotlights glared. The Sphinx's eyes were glittered pure black. Well then, my dear, the monster said calmly, if you won't pass, you fail. And since we can't allow children to be held back, you'll be eaten. The Sphinx bared her claws, which gleamed like stainless steel. She pounced at the podium. No! Tyson charged. He hates it when people threaten Annabeth, but I couldn't believe he was being so brave, especially since he'd had such a bad experience with the Sphinx before. He tackled the Sphinx mid-air and they crashed sideways into a pile of bones.